I had a moment where my lowest point for me was almost taking my own life. I went out to Pennsylvania, rented out a cabin there. Long story short, I took my firearm with me, and I remember sitting there bedside, and I had my gun next to the Bible, staring at it, not knowing what I was thinking, but I just remember staring at it. I just find myself with part of the cold muzzle to the side of my temple. It's racked, and I have my trigger finger tense. I remember I wanted to feel control, and I never felt more control in my life than having felt my finger on that trigger. I went as far as riding the wall on that trigger, and I think that was going through my head at that point. By that point, I was ready to do a lot of drinking like crazy. Like, I've never drank like that my entire life. I couldn't do that to her. My other sister, she's battling cancer. I was thinking of her. My other one was battling some issues of her own as well, and I couldn't do that to her either. I had a moment where I just said, you know what, I don't even deserve to die. I deserve to live, so I could punish myself slow. So I did. I never thought about taking my life again.
All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Blaklist podcast. If you are tuning in with us for the very first time today, let me go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Jared Blaine. I'm one of the hosts. We are missing Swag and Brianna Elizabeth tonight, but we will make do. And without further ado, today's guest is a remarkable individual with a diverse background of achievements and challenges. A former Bellator Welterweight and CFFC champion who's currently making waves in the UFC. Beyond martial arts, he's a member of SAG with film and stunt credits in shows like Law & Order, FBI's Most Wanted. He and his partner founded Good Theory, a company aimed at raising mental health awareness and the importance of addressing past trauma. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the show, Lyman Good.
Thank you for having me, brother. It's a
Thank
pleasure.
you. I appreciate it, man. Appreciate you, willing to do this as well. I kind of took a shot in the dark reaching out to you. I saw it when we first hopped on that Zoom. I told you I first saw you through the podcast you did with Jesse Leach, and Kill Switch is one of my favorite bands, and so
That's
I
awesome.
follow their stuff diehard, and so I found you, and I was like, you know what, I gotta reach out to this guy. So I appreciate you actually, responding and just
Of
taking the
course.
time to hop on.
They always say the answer to the question you never ask is always no.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that podcast was a very profound experience for me, and it's funny that led to this opportunity as well. I'd like to also thank you for reaching out. I'm always very wanting to give my time and energy and want to learn more about other people's stories, such as yourself. I know you
Mm.
shared a little bit about yourself in our conversation before this, but I just love connecting, love storytelling, love vibing with other people who resonate on the same language as I do. So I want to thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, yeah, man, it's very important for us to be able to talk about these things, just like, with doing Good Theory and whatnot. We got to change this stigma and this mentality on, we of not wanting to talk about these things because of what the world thinks, and it's like not like people think just because we go to talk about mental health or addiction or anything like that we're weak people, or that we're not, society just says we're not supposed to have feelings and talk about it. And so that we're trying to change that to let people know, like, listen, it's okay not to be okay. And it's okay to have bad days, and it's okay, just like it is to have good days. But we have to
Absolutely.
talk about it.
Bro, I can't express to you just how difficult it is, in a profession such as mine where I'm revered and respected for, perhaps doing one of the most masculine things as fighting in a combat sport live on national television, knocking each other out, trying to kill each other. It's so important to be able to open up the conversation for people of all calibers, whether you are a competitor, an athlete, an average person, it doesn't matter. It's just the ability to open up the platform to have that conversation, because a conversation will happen regardless, one way or another. It's either the one that happens up front when you allow someone to be vulnerable and let them talk about the things that they're probably struggling with, or the conversation that you have with that person's family at their funeral because they didn't allow themselves the freedom of conversation, the freedom to express themselves, and instead just took it upon themselves to just end their own life.
Mm-hmm. And and also aside from, helping those people. At the end of the day, it's also giving um, education to the family members, the people, because or friends, because man, I can't tell you how many times like I'm a part of a lot of different dads groups on Facebooks and stuff, and
Hmm.
unfortunately there's been a few where the men are just reaching out and they're on this long post about their mental health and that they're talking about wanting to unalive themselves and not want to be here on this earth, and people are just like, no, don't do that, this, that, and the third. But then that person succeeds, and then somebody finds an update and they post it, and they're just like, wow, I wish there was more that could have been done. It's like, dude, the dude was reaching out, and
Yeah.
I remember seeing one, unfortunately, where this guy just, he posted a TikTok and he was just sobbing, sobbing and sobbing, and about half hour after posting that TikTok, he actually went through with it. And his family, but started doing some research, and his family was just like, we had no clue he was dealing with X, Y, and Z, and this, that, and the third. And it's just like, this just doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't. And we got to
There's
be able to help these people.
So you said that, you know, people when they find out, however they do, they tend to ask, or they tend to say, what could I had done, but that before that comes, I wish I had known,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times people aren't even aware, but the clues are there. Like you said, when people go back and then they dig and, look further into, how did this come about? How did this happen? There were clues. That's part of the premise behind, my my partner and I's company with Good Theory. The project is based off of the awareness of how we are good in theory, because we always tell each other, up front that I'm good. How are you? And then your automatic response is always, oh, I'm good. How are you? And then you carry on. But we don't really take the time to analyze, and sometimes you don't want to, make a conversation negative, and I understand that, but there's always signs. And if you care enough for the person, or you care enough for the human condition of the person talking to you, you'll see that there's signs there. You just have to be not so, caught in this matrix of just following along and just doing something that's so automatic. It's ingrained in us since
Mm-hmm.
we're children, to always be good, act good, fall in line, very like automatic, monotonous. There's like there's no thought process behind when we greet one another, that we often oversee the fact that the person is probably that same day going through one of his worst days ever and is going to hang himself, shoot himself, do something terrible. And we don't even know, because the dude just smiled in our face and said, yeah, I'm good, man. Have a good day. And then
Mm-hmm.
carries on.
I think the biggest lie that we tell ourselves is we're fine, we're okay. If you think about it, it's just that, like you said, that's the biggest response is how are you doing? I'm good. I'm all right. I'm fine.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, like, we're not. I know I've been guilty of it plenty of times when I'm in my depressive moods, and I know I'm just not there mentally. And people, how you doing? I'm good, because that's how I was raised up. As being a man, you're not supposed to have those feelings. I was raised, unfortunately, without a father, and my mom was, got beat by every person she was with. So we were taught to show emotion was weak minded, and we would get, we get our ass beat if we showed emotion, this, that, and the third. And so it's trying to learn to break that as an adult.
That's
And
so interesting. Like, where did that come from? The
right,
being taught that, at what
right,
point and what age and why. But I
yeah,
do also believe there's a fine line to that as well, because the alternative is that there are professions and fields in which the person does have to act that way. And I guess in the scenario of like law enforcement, someone who works in hospitals, doctors, people who are caretakers, and people of authority have to have this semblance of kind of having it together and being strong, even though there's chaos and other things going on behind the scenes, just for the sake of keeping things going for other people. It's almost like, those who are at war, the ones leading the front lines have to act strong to give that bravery to the people behind. So I do understand that, but what's important is for that person to have enough self-awareness to know that that is a mask, that when you go home, you have to unpack that, take that mask off. That is not who
right,
you
right,
are, and unravel yourself from that, image, that idea that you have to always be strong, because it's okay not to be. It's okay to not be okay, like you said
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just it's just people like us. I got to keep fighting the good fight and keep shining that light and keep showing people that there is hope and it is okay. And um, we're just little by little we're changing that, helping change that stigma. So, well, let's
100%.
run
And it
it back,
starts
man.
here.
Yeah, exactly. This is where it starts here. It starts with conversations like this and authentic, unfiltered conversations. Just in all reality, just being truthful about your emotions and your feelings. So,
Yeah, and you
um,
mentioned fatherhood, being a dad, and
yeah,
yeah, you're part of a group. If I
yeah,
misunderstood or heard you said
part of a
something.
couple Facebook groups that dads groups on social media.
So I teach martial arts to a broad range of ages, of which the youngest is between the ages of 4 or 5. I deal with, at one point I was teaching kids every day, and I taught other people now to step in and also teach underneath me. In my experience with training children, and the reason why parents bring their children to me in the first place, a majority of it is usually bullying. As we all know, bullying is a pandemic in of itself for the kids in school. And the one thing I'm surprised, but not anymore at this point, is that whenever I have conversations with the kids at the end of the class, and I ask them, "Hey, have any of you guys ever been bullied before?" Or if I bring up a topic that they have to answer to, the parents are usually there on the lobby area and they're overseeing this whole thing. They could hear and listen. And when I ask the question, often there's a kid that the parent wouldn't had known that they were being bullied until that kid raised his hand. And then I'm like, all right, tell me more. I'll get into the discussion. I'll talk about courage, etc., and whatever the topic is for that day. But then afterwards, I'll go to the parent and be like, hey, I don't know if you knew this. And almost every time the parent's like, no, I never knew. This is the first time I heard that, my son, my daughter was getting bullied in school. I wasn't aware, and
Yeah,
it's crazy that at that age it starts.
it's getting younger and younger. It, it's and unfortunately hear about these kids that are 8, 9 years old that are going out and unfortunately going through with the acts of not wanting to be here because of everything. And it's just it's
Yeah, it's
you
sad
know
that that's the answer, and
my son's 11, my middle son is 11, and I will tell you this, he he has had issues with bullying in the past that he literally has came to crying his eyes out, saying that he did not want to be alive. And to
mm,
hear that come from my son at that age was like heartbreaking. Because my kids live, they live in Oregon, with their mother, and so I'm not there, obviously. And so, with that being said, it's like, I can't. I'm not there, so I don't get to see what he's dealing with on a daily basis or anything. Yeah, we get to talk and whatnot, but like just to hear him say that, and it's just like it's gut wrenching to be able to have to hear my 11-year-old talk about not wanting to be alive because of him being
yeah,
bullied or this that.
yeah,
It's just like, geez, like I
sad
don't.
to
It's
hear.
sad. It's super super sad, unfortunately. But he's able to see a therapist and work through it and whatnot. But it's
That's why.
just got to
Sorry, go
keep
ahead.
doing
What
it.
were you saying? Yeah,
This what we got to do. We just got to keep making the awareness, man.
I think it's arming children with the tools to be able to find their way through the chaos early on in life, and to understand that they are not without an answer to this problem,
Mm.
because often kids will also feel demoralized because they feel like there is no answer or solution to this problem, that they have to go to school each and every day and have to see that person that's picking on him, bullying him, making him feel shitty.
Mm.
um, it's to first give the child enough of an understanding to know that there are answers to it. It's not going to be easy. But that's why I firmly believe in taking up martial arts, or something that's going to empower the child, because empowerment, anything that induces self-confidence, self-discipline, these are all the predecessors of strength in a child, especially that young, where you're just molding their psyche. Everything about that person, how they're going to be for the rest of their lives, those are monumental moments when they're young, where they're establishing that. They're either going to grow up always feeling like a victim and start hiding things, and then start to kind of create early on a defense mechanism or survival skills and then carry that on into adulthood, or they learn early on that there are tools, there's ways to navigate this, this shitty idea of, getting punked around and bullied in school, and that there's a way to fight back. It's just going to take a little bit of courage, a little bit of strength, confidence, but it's possible.
Absolutely.
The following PSA is brought to you by The Phoenix. The Phoenix is not just a gym, it's a community where the real weight lifted is not just barbells, but hearts, minds, and spirits. Whether you're in recovery or simply choose to live a sober lifestyle, The Phoenix offers a range of activities from yoga to hiking, all led by people who've walked the path of transformation. So why not aim higher with The Phoenix? Your first membership requirement is just 48 hours of sobriety. Rise from the ashes and soar with The Phoenix today. Do you know about naloxone, otherwise known as Narcan? This life-saving medication can reverse an opioid overdose in minutes. You might think, I don't need it, I'm not around opioids. But the truth is, you never know when you'll be in a situation where you could save a life. It's easy to use, and in many places offer it for free or at a low cost. So let's be prepared and look out for each other. Remember, you might not plan on being around opioid use, but you never know when it will be around you, and you could save the life of somebody that loves and is loved. I'm Chuck LaFlange with the Ashes to Awesome podcast, and remember, you are loved.
So speaking of on the topic of childhood and children, let's kind of run it back. I'm a little interested to hear kind of about you and how was childhood like for you? How did you grow up?
So I was raised in Spanish Harlem, New York City. It's the projects, it's basically like low class. I was at one point also, jumping around. I was going to shelters, with my mom. It's my mother and I, and my father was in and out of my life. That's kind of been the theme of, the story when it comes to my dad, is that he's been in and out, and then just complete absence at one point. But I grew up pretty much in just a ghetto environment, drugs, violence, gangs, etc. The typical shit you'd see in the, in the projects in Manhattan. A lot of alienation, because I always never quite fit in, nor did I ever wanna fit in. I don't think there was ever a point, when I think back, that I ever wanted to be part of it, because there was a lot of gangs. As a matter of fact, I lived in a area where it was kind of between gangs, so there was a lot of fights, and I did make friends that were in both sides of the gangs, and I think because of my friendship to people on both sides, it got me in a lot of trouble and got me into fights as well. I've been jumped before and beaten up and bottles thrown at me and whatnot. And, I grew up basically just very alienated, kind of a loner, but it never bothered me. It was strange. It was something I always felt proud of, is that I was kind of my own person. But the only thing was that I just never had someone to look up to, and I never had, like real friends, people that I felt like, or that I resonated with. So I was kind of doing a lot of figuring out when I was young. I was in the streets a lot. I was getting kicked out of schools a lot. I had a Catholic school upbringing, believe it or not. And up until I got to Catholic high, I beat the shit out of the first bully. That was the first time I started just really letting my anger go, because I grew up with a lot of anger issues. I was very explosive. I would just have random bouts of just exploding, and I think a great deal of it has to do with, since childhood, I've been holding on to things that had happened to me since I was 9 years old. And I carried that over, and we all know that anger, when it's swept under a rug, just turns into just an implosion that's just always waiting to happen.
Yep.
So after that school, got kicked out of another school for beating the shit out of another bully. That carried on to like 4 schools, and started to make a reputation for myself in the area. That was just something that always bothered me, just seeing people fucking picking on other kids, man. I don't know. I didn't consider it regards to my own health, or if I would get hurt, or if the person punking the other kid was bigger than me or not. I didn't give a shit. It's just something that always boiled my blood, and it angered me every time. And anytime I saw it, I'd stand up to the bully. And I had a court case one time. I bit a chunk off the kid's neck one time. Another one, I knocked his fucking tooth out of his mouth. We were in the track team together. I remember a big, tall, black kid named Patrick. So went up to her and fucking socked him right in the face without warning. That was the other thing, is that I wasn't much of a talker. I was very quiet. And my acts of violence were just, to them, always catching people off guard. I would just walk up to the person without reason, without saying anything, and just, let my anger out on them.
How'd your mom react to all of that? Like
As
every
any
time you're
mother
kicked out of
would,
school?
as any mother would, she was upset, disappointed, angry, but the one thing she never was, she never gave up on me. She always, for better or for worse, whatever downfalls I endured, she was always, okay, what's next? Let's move on to the next thing. She would never harp on something for too long. If I fucked up somehow, she'd be like, all right, how do we move past this? Let's move on to the next thing. My times in high school pretty much ended when the last high school I attended was right near the project where I lived. It's called Manhattan Center for Science and Mathematics. And long story short, I was so I was big into art. That was my outlet. That was the one thing that I loved. That was like, to me, that was my savior at that time in my life, because that was my way of letting things out. And the night before, this one day in school, I was cutting up pieces of a magazine, because I used to do collages and put up posters of like, heavy metal bands on the wall, and do like a bunch of like art projects and stuff. And I remember the next morning I put on the same pants that I had on the day before, but I had the razor blade in my pocket. So I went to school that day, and I remembered I had it. So I was sitting in the back. I didn't think anyone was paying attention. So I took it out, and I was fumbling the razor blade, just fucking around with it. And next thing you know, I see security coming in, and the teacher goes over and points to me. I'm confused. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Security comes over to me, and they say I have a weapon on me, and that we have to go through your locker, which I thought was a breach of privacy, but whatever. Another thing I had in life that was my outlet was a journal.
Okay.
In that journal, I wrote everything. I mean, my darkest thoughts, diagrams of things that I've considered doing to myself, and a lot of very private, personal, deep thoughts that did not belong in the hands of any other person other than my own. And they felt compelled to go through my journal, read everything. And then next thing you know, I'm being escorted from a high school to a psychiatric unit. So I got put into a psych unit, and that was one of the turning points in my life, to be honest. It was because while I was in that psychiatric unit, I was also the youngest one in the ward for some reason. So I saw some things in there that was fucking just bizarre. Like, people, out in the world who say like, oh, people are crazy. You don't really know crazy until either you've been locked up in jail or you've been locked up in a psychiatric unit. I've been both. And
I haven't been to jail, but I've been to the psychiatric unit.
yeah, so bro, you could vouch for what you see in there, and it's sad. I mean, from the outside, it's like, yeah, they're crazy, and it's fucking, you could laugh and be shocked by it. But people who are truly deranged, they truly have problems, whether it's drug related or not. But there's really sick people out there. So during my time there, I remember just sitting in anger, just telling myself, like, what the fuck am I doing in here? I don't belong here with these people. I'm not crazy. And that was like the irony of it, is that I was seen as either crazy or seen as someone who's not normal, because I felt what I felt in life. And I felt what I felt because of what had happened to me when I was younger. I was sexually abused at the age of 9. And I had, I was abused for a long time that I never told anybody, not even my own mother. Nobody knew. And I kept that a secret. When I had gotten out of the psychiatric unit, I believe it was around the age of 16, if I'm not mistaken. And I had a really bad day once. And I used to cut school a lot and hang out in the stairwells of the projects. I was just piss stained, shit everywhere, drug vials and stuff. Sometimes crackheads going up and down. And I did it enough to start making friends with the crackheads that go up and down. And, that was me cutting school because I felt like I didn't belong in school. I didn't belong with people. I didn't belong with other students. I didn't belong in society because that's what I was meant to feel. And after that experience in the psychiatric unit, I felt that even more. And I said, fuck that. Like, fuck art, fuck writing. Like, I'm done with everything. I had to swear myself to silence, basically. That, talking about masks, how we were in the beginning of your show, I think was when I formed my very first mask. Because I said, I have to go about life and walk different, act different, talk different, just so that I don't stand out and make people feel alarmed by me just because of who I am. So I just started, being very secretive about everything, started acting like I got to be tough all the time. And that was the start of that for me. I told my mom finally what happened when I was younger about when I was sexually abused as a kid. And I remember it broke her heart, man.
If people don't understand like what that shit does, and I was 8 when I got sexually abused, and
I'm sorry.
I didn't say nothing until I was older, but
Yeah.
like people really don't, and I don't wish that on anybody, but they do not understand the shit that puts your mind through, not only as a kid but even as an adult.
Yeah.
And I know at least for me, it changed my views on a lot of things when I got older. Changed my views on sex and on women, and just and I'm 35 years old and I'm still going to therapy for it.
Yeah.
So people don't get it, and
It's
and
an
I don't
invisible
know
wound. Doesn't
yeah,
go away.
yeah, so I'm sure your mom, I'm sure it killed her.
It killed her to know that it happened right under her nose. I mean, I don't want to get too much into that. That's in the past now. But when and where it was happening was right where she was, and it was in her absence. And I don't mean that negatively. I mean when she would leave to work, and I was left with cousins in Puerto Rico. And the people that also did it is also what fucked with my head as a kid because it's my own family. And I think that's what hurt her the most was, like you said earlier, when someone finds out, someone did something to themselves, what could I have done? I think that thought crossed her mind probably to this day, to be honest. I'm sure she's made peace with it. I'm still, learning to make peace with it with myself. But for her, it was just more the guilt. She blamed herself. And that made me feel bad, even telling her, to be honest.
Right.
If I went back, I almost wish I would have not told her, but I think it would hurt her even more to not have told her, when I did. But regardless, life moved on. I said what I said, and then time passed by. My mom said, let's put you in martial arts. Let's do something, because I think at that point she saw I wasn't faring well in the education system.
Right.
She knew the type of person that I was and that I wasn't going to conform. I'm very stubborn. I'm a stubborn motherfucker. Everyone knows that about me. Mika's laughing in the corner of my eye over there. She knows. But
Did you ever get into like any substance or anything like weed or drinking or anything, or was
no,
that just not your deal?
not then. No.
Okay. All right.
Like I said, I didn't have a lot of friends, so I didn't have a lot of influence either. So it was kind
Okay.
of a good and bad thing in a way. But at that age, I wasn't really. But I think my drug of choice then was hurting myself because I still have scars on my arms and stuff. That was my way of making myself feel better.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to feel something. I didn't want to feel numb. And then the other thing too, I was on a shitload of medications. So I guess in a pharmaceutical standpoint, yeah, I was on a shit ton of drugs because they were pumping me with like 5 different ones all at once. They kept changing the dosages because I kept coming back to them, telling them like I'm not really feeling much. But what I was feeling was tons of just adverse reactions, like terrible things. Like I felt like a zombie,
Yeah.
And when I got out of the hospital, because long before the hospital, I was also seeing a therapist, and I was, my mom was making me seek help. She she knew something was going on. I just never told her exactly what it was, but there was a lot of depression and anger there. So before the hospital even, I was medicated and I was seeing therapists. When I had gotten out of the hospital, I got rid of all that shit, man. I flushed all my shit down. I threw all my medications out. Um, there was one vial of meds that I did have left over. And, you know, I still wasn't feeling good. I was going through a lot of depression. A lot of it had to do with, I had seen my father die. I'd seen him die and resuscitated in front of me right before my eyes in the apartment. He, I guess he had overdosed,
Mm.
and I had an uncle who was there at the time. I don't think my uncle was involved in it. It just so happened that he happened to be there. But he was, believe it or not, the start of also my martial arts inspiration because he was locked up in Sing Sing prison. We used
Yeah.
to visit him. I'm kind of jumping around topics here.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
We used to visit him in Sing Sing prison, and I remember as a kid he would like put my hands up and teach me like how to throw punches and stuff. So he
Mm.
kind of planted a seed in my head. But anyways, I remember my uncle being there, my father out on the floor, just he looked blue, like his lips were blue, and his eyes was wide open, just laying on the floor in front of me, and I had no idea what the fuck was going on. I remember seeing my uncle slapping him across the face, yelling, angry. Um, then I remember medics show up. They gave him an injection. He pops right out from, half being dead.
Yeah.
And the first thing he did is just look over to me. He gave me these eyes that was probably one of the most memorable eyes I've ever seen in my father's eyes, because it was the first time I remember seeing him have this look of embarrassment, shame.
Yeah.
Like it was like a different person. I remember the look in his eyes, and he it was like he looked like he was like a prisoner in his own body, you know?
Yeah.
Because the way he looked scared. He looked almost like a little kid, you know? And then,
And that's something you never forget.
yeah, sure enough, not long after that, back to, what he was doing.
Yeah.
And then when I look back, I'm like, man, I feel like that person that bolted up from the floor after they gave him the injection, that was my father. I had glimpses of him, and there were times where he was sober. He wasn't always, doing what he was doing, but I felt like there was two different people. In the moment, you don't realize, what they go through. You just feel what you feel, and you feel angry about it. It takes, at 38 years old, after, after his passing, and then you look back and you realize like he was just someone trying to survive. He wasn't loved himself. He was abandoned by his own father, you know. And there's a saying I've been saying lately. I find myself saying more and more lately is that hurt people hurt people,
Yep.
and they don't mean
100%.
to. They just don't know how to love other people the way they want to be loved because they don't love themselves.
Yeah.
And anyways,
He's just, I could attest to 100%. I mean, I was in addiction for 15 years, and by the grace of God, I'm, 5 years sober, but it's just like, man, we're just trying to survive, just trying to live, trying to be loved, trying to be somebody. But sometimes, sometimes we can and sometimes we can't. So it's something I've learned over the years, and I've been a shitty father and a shitty husband, and I'm divorced now, and I'm I've been with my girlfriend almost 2 years, and it's just like, Jesus, I don't know,
proud
man.
of
It's just,
the work you're doing now. It's a matter of being able to first become aware of that. And I think most people live out the better length of their days in life before they can ever figure that out and make that change. Because I believe everyone can change and is capable of it, but they have to first become self-aware of their own problems and look at themselves in the mirror and to be able to make that conscious decision to change.
Yep. Absolutely.
Moving forward past, that, I have very shitty memory of my childhood, so I don't recollect, the order of things. But shortly after that, there was the one bottle of the medication that I did have. I took them all and had to get sent to the hospital to get my stomach pumped for that. I don't to this day think I was doing it with the intention of offing myself, trying to, depart and fucking, be gone. I think I just wanted something to change. And I just think metaphorically, this bottle of pills is supposed to make me feel good. So fuck it. Like,
Yeah.
let's go,
Yeah.
And, that my mom, I think after that, that's when she decided, like, we have to do something, to answer your question, how, I got into martial arts. That was the start of it. She just kind of saw the conditions and, the way I've been living my life so far. She didn't want that for me. And she saw what my father was doing at that time. So we decided to take up martial arts, and we did it together as a hobby. She was like, hey, let's both do it. I think she needed it as well for herself because she was going through a lot too.
Yeah.
And bro, I could talk for hours on how this became the very thing that made me the person that I am today. But martial arts saved my life, took me off the streets, and it brought me to the core of who I am as a human being. And it gave me all of the tools that I needed in life for me to overcome any and all adversity that came my way after.
Yeah. Yeah. It's at least you were given an outlet. You were given something that was able to help you, again, be self aware and just, it's all about, I did karate, stuff like that growing up. My kids have been in it and stuff. But the biggest thing that I've seen out of it is being, the discipline and being self aware and different things. And so, I'm all for like martial arts, and I'm all for any of that stuff. Some people out there think it's just like, oh, kids shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, no, like my opinion, go for it, go big, because that's your living testament to that.
100%. And it's not just kids, even adults. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised to know the amount of adults that come through our doors at the school where we teach. Excuse me. And they either want to make a change in their lives because of something that they're going through, or they feel like they're just backed up against the wall. They got nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
Or they've been attacked before and they never want to feel that feeling of feeling powerless. Or, they, I don't know, they just want stress relief. Like, there's a lot of people as adults who actually come in through the doors very honest about why they want to start. And they may not be honest at first, but at some point later on, they open up about their stories. And it's always about self-improvement, self-empowerment, self-discovery. And martial arts is an amazing place to do all of that.
I bet you those kids that beat you up in school didn't know what you were going to become.
Now, funny enough, there was, I think, one of the kids that I did stand up for, that I beat the shit out of, the bully who was punking him around, had messaged me years after. He was like, bro, like, I didn't know you're doing so well and you're fighting and blah blah blah. Anyways, I just wanted to say thank you for that, and I was like, wow, like, it's funny what stands out for people still, like, later on. Even me, I'll always remember the people who were there for me in good faith and had trust and faith in me, and saw something in me that then I didn't see in myself.
Yeah.
That those are people that will always stand out in my head, and I always go back and in one way or another say thank you or show gratitude to those people.
Yeah. So you start taking martial arts, and everything just progresses from there.
It was love at first punch.
Yeah.
I started hitting those mitts, the sound of just gloves hitting the leather pads, the smell of the sweat and the hard work, the determination and discipline you see in others training, and going into it as someone who's a complete novice, who's an amateur in this. I look at other people who are like the higher ranks, who are sparring and rolling around doing jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow, like these guys are fucking amazing. They look like they just, in my eyes, resonated power. And that's what I wanted for me. I wanted power. I wanted to exhaust myself. I wanted to burn myself out doing all this shit that I walked into the studio and saw everyone doing. I was like, this is amazing. It felt like a different world. Once I entered, those doors shut behind me. This was Tiger Schulmann's on 19th Street at the time. They welcomed me with open arms. I met, to this day, one of my best friends, Nassim Levy, who's crazy and out of his fucking mind, who I love, but nobody has a bigger heart than that dude. And then years after, meeting the two people who I may not have had a father to show me the way in life, but it was replaced by two men who were they're the founders of Tiger Schulmann's, Ronnie and Danny, who became the two people who filled in his shoes. And they taught me about life. They mentored me about not only about business, not only about becoming a martial arts instructor, being the best fighter that there is, but about how to become a better human being. And I can't thank them enough to this day. I always show gratitude to them, to thank them for being like my fathers and taking me under their wing, getting me off the streets.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy the amount of people that come that they take in off the streets. Like I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, so my uncle he's a kickboxer there, and he trained at this local gym that was there. He had a couple pay-per-view fights. He was going, and he was one that they took off the streets. He was into the drugs and the gang life and been in and out of jail and whatnot, and he was able to go in, and they took him in and just trained, and then next thing he's going to Thailand to fight, and then he's about to be pro, but then he got my aunt pregnant, so that kind of just it ended the whole thing. But my uncle was like my father. I lived with him for a point in my life. And we actually used together, we got sober together. We've been through the whole thing, but to see like what the martial arts did for him, which it draws me really close to that type of sport, just because I've seen it firsthand, affect someone close to me, and I know that they got, even though it's a fighting sport, and some people look at it as this and that, like, man, you guys got some of the biggest fucking hearts out there, the biggest hearts. They just want to take care of each other.
Yeah. It's about having community as well. So there's a sense of, we have this ancestral blood coursing through our veins from the moment we're born, and we're brought into this world with a sense of tribemanship. We always want to be part of a tribe, finding our people, our vibe, our community. And in martial arts, you find a lot of that. But it's honestly, it's not just in martial arts too. If you think about it, people find it all the time, but it's a matter of, going through the course and not getting disenchanted by the people that you do lose in life.
Yeah.
God takes, but he can also give.
Yeah.
And when he gives to replace what he's taken, because he knows better than we do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you find that sense of community, even though you feel like you may not have this. Later in life, you find other things that replace that end up being better for you down the road.
Right.
You see it in the military. You see people on the front lines, people who become, they just have this relationship to one another in the trenches. You know what I mean? People, when they struggle together, they find this very unique relationship to one another. That's one that even opponents find in themselves when we step into the cage together, because we share that one moment that is unique, that can never be replicated ever again in our entire lives, unless you fight someone else. That is a moment that you shared specifically with that person. You devoted 3 months of your life, all of your energy, all of your fears, all of your confidences, everything towards this one person who otherwise you would have never met, would have never known, didn't even know he existed. And the moment you meet that person in the cage, we lock eyes and then we engage to try to hurt or knock each other out or put each other flat on our asses or on our backs, that's a very, as bizarre as it sounds, it's a very unique, intimate relationship that we have together when we share that moment together. I feel like
Yeah.
those moments happen all the time, not necessarily in that perspective, like in a fighter's standpoint,
Yeah.
but like you finding it with, your girlfriend, for example, at this point in your life,
Yeah.
the people that I'm sure you've met to help you along your road and through recovery and, everything that you've done to be where you are today. All of it is community at the end of the day, because we need one another, helping each other out. We can't do it alone. People who say they're self-taught is complete bullshit.
No.
No one is self-taught or self-made. There's people who want it really bad and they do a lot on their own. But there comes a point in time that we do need people who become the vessels in our lives to help us sail across seas we would have never otherwise on our own. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
I yeah, no, I agree. Like I know in the beginning before we started recording, I was telling you like we're a small platform, but we're able to do some big things, and I don't credit that to us at any bit. That's people that we've met through at the very beginning of this when we were no followers and nothing, and they saw the view and they saw the vision, and they're way bigger than we are, and they just took, they were able to take us under their wing and just teach us and introduce us to others in the community and whatnot. And that's why I love the recovery and mental health community so much, is because everybody steps in at the end of the day. Like it's all to help. I will have a guest such as yourself come on, and next thing you know, by the end of recording, they're like, listen, I got X, Y, and Z that I can link you with, and it's just it's a constant thing. And so I fully give, even to where we're at in the point of our career, quote unquote. I don't credit that to us. It's to the people that have shown us the way along the way. And I think, I don't claim to be self-taught for nothing. I will fully give credit where credit's due.
And that's important to do as well. That's what makes people authentically have genuine relationships with one another, is
Yeah.
gratitude. It's also a savior in life for people who go through very difficult points in their lives where they feel they can't overcome. This is, very, very difficult times where people feel like they have to consider some very, um, they've thought of taking their own lives, for example.
Yeah.
I think having gratitude is a way to kind of rip you out of the vein of that thought of knowing that, that there's other ways out of this. You don't have to end your life. You just have to have a sense of gratitude. But the part that's difficult to do is have gratitude in the midst of, the torment that you feel and that silent desperation that you live late at night alone when you're in bed by yourself. You know what I mean? These are all difficult things to do. No one said that healing is easy. It's something that's very difficult, but it just further points to the importance of having community and people there, because we all need each other. Sometimes we got to lean on one another. And to your point about, being a small platform and the help that you're getting now you're growing and building, honestly, bro, like, it's, to me, what's more important than masses is the mission.
Yeah.
And if you can change one life because it took one person seeing the one, show that you did, for example, it saved a life. You never know. I say it so at my school, I'm in the process of teaching, an instructorship course where I take my highest ranks, and first I train them. They're in my advanced classes. I train them. And then right afterwards, we sit down and we go through a course where I instruct them on how to teach. What I go over has actually nothing to do with the technical aspects of teaching. What I go over is more about, understanding people, the psychology of human beings, the nuances of getting into people's heads and knowing how to motivate them. And as I go through these things with them, I explain to them the importance of, letting people feel like they're welcomed at the school and that they're important. And I think we also have to make people feel like they're important in life. There's a lot of me, and everyone in this, in
Yeah.
today's world is all about, themselves.
Yeah.
But I think is letting other people feel important. And I think that's why what you're doing is also awesome with giving a platform, because you're letting other people feel important. I also tell my those people in that instructorship class, I was like, if you ever feel like you're teaching a class and it's like a shitty class, oh, it's not good enough, I'm a new instructor, I say to them, well, I want you to say, I want you to reframe that thought and tell yourself that in a class of, let's say you have 15, 20 people there you're teaching, at least one of them is always one bad day away from doing something terrible to themselves, and you just don't know it. And I speak from experience. I had a student many years ago. I'll tell you a quick story. It's about this guy. His name was Malcolm, and he was a Buddhist. He practiced Buddhism and was, not the type of person you'd expect entering a world of martial arts, because he was very about peace, and it was very, Zen-like, and very, much wanting to not hurt or throw punches. He didn't want to do anything that was he considered an act of violence. But he got into it and trained with me for years because he loved it so much. One day he started just giving me boxes of personal items. This is going back to the clues that we were talking about earlier in the show. And I didn't think much of it. He was someone that always went to all my fights, made signs for me and stuff, and then would write me cards all the time, thanking me, like a very, just an awesome human being, very nice person. And I didn't see him for about 2 weeks. A very close friend of his who also trained there showed up at the school, and she was crying and told me that he had taken his own life. He drowned himself in the East River in Manhattan. And apparently when they went to his apartment, they saw everything put away very neatly. Like he went out like the Buddhist way, had his keys, his phone, his personal items just lined up very nice in order. Like his apartment apparently was immaculate. And when I look back and I remember the box of all his personal items, I was like, fuck, I just missed, the clue that he was giving me. It never crossed my mind because he was such a genuinely nice person to my face, always smiling, and I would have never thought.
Has that changed your mentality now on the way that you look at other people with signs and warnings and stuff like that?
1,000%. That's what good theory is about. That's part of the mission is, I give one of the best gifts we could give to another human being is when you ask them how are they doing is to give space to really listen.
Right.
Another gift you can give to somebody is the gift of allowing them to be themselves and not let them feel like they have to, uphold this idea or image, or if, they're always strong that they have to be strong in front of you. Like, fuck that. Just be yourself. Right. Wherever you want to be yourself. I would never judge another human being for whatever the fuck you do. If you're into this or that, as long as you're not evil and you're not someone who wants to hurt people, you know what I mean? Like I'm no person to judge anyone, but as long as you're yourself and you're authentic and you show up however you show up, I feel like that's the best gift you could give somebody is that space. But also have the space so when you ask someone how they're doing, like look at them, listen, feel.
Right.
We're so caught up in our own bullshit that we ask the question but don't really want to listen to the answer anyways. We're just doing it. Yeah, exactly. Going through the motions.
Yeah, exactly. And that's very, very important. And that's why I like doing these shows like this instead of like a traditional like 21 question type deal. Like it's just because I want you as the guest to be able to just be 100% open and just tell, be comfortable, and I don't censor this and that or the third, because if I had told someone that you got to censor X, Y, and Z, then it goes against our whole entire purpose here.
Yeah.
And so I there's sometimes we spend 45 minutes, sometimes we spend 2 hours. It all depends on the way the conversation goes. And then the fact too is like you guys give me the outlet to be able to even though I do this, multiple times a week, like I also get to have a new conversation with somebody else and talk about their experiences and their life. And it's just in every single time it teaches me something, because now I'm hearing your words and I'm learning something from you, and it teaches me something at the end of every episode. Every episode I'm learning something about it.
And I'm sure there's a part of it that's very healing for you as well.
Yeah.
each episode, there's a part of you that gets to talk and open up about, the parts of you that you once kept secret.
Yeah.
We all had that inner child in us, and all children want us to be heard.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure it's sort of like micro fractions at a time, or
Oh, it is. It's therapy
sentences
for
here and
me.
there. Yeah, it's 100%
Like, this
therapy
is
for you
my
as well.
therapy. Yep.
But what's
Even days.
beautiful is that it's therapeutic for you as you're helping others also heal
Right.
themselves.
Yeah.
So again, the importance of community. It's
There,
that's it right there.
there's like days, I'll be honest, like, I'm a human being, so there's days I just have a shitty day and I don't want to do anything. I don't want to record. I don't want to do it, but I do it. And at the very end of it, I'm just like, I'm so glad I did this.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm sure it's the same with you with fighting or training and just different things like that. Like, I'm sure that, but you do it and it's just like, all right, cool. Like, all right, this is what I needed. This is exactly what I needed. This conversation or this training or this something.
I experienced a lot of that as of lately. I'm in a better place now in life. If you had caught me 4 years ago, that was actually when you saw the podcast, Stoke the Fire with Jesse Leach and Matt Stokes. And funny enough, I almost opted out of doing that interview as well. That
Really?
podcast when they initially asked. I was in a very bad place, and I didn't want to do it because I had nothing good to say. I didn't want to wear the mask,
Right.
and I didn't want to lie. I didn't want to lie to people anymore. I had that was when my father had, he passed away 4 years back in May. I remember it was a couple of weeks actually right before my birthday, funny enough. And right before my last fight I had. The last fight was last time I competed was 4 years ago. I took the time to work on myself and do the thing that I ignored since I was 9 years old. And one of the things that, although I stopped fighting and I stopped wearing a lie on my face and I stopped saying things that I used to say a lot, the one thing that didn't stop was me going into my school and teaching. There was times I wasn't there also, but I was still in cruise control. I would show up when I was sensible enough. I was drinking a lot. I was alcoholic, abuse, doing a lot of things to harm myself during that time because I didn't love myself and I hated who I was. A year prior to that, my father had reached out because he wanted, out of nowhere, to have a part in my sister's lives, and he was reaching out to them and reached out to me as well. And there was a discussion that we had where I said some things to let go years and years of anger that I had. As a kid, I blamed him for everything that happened to me. And I had a lot of figuring out to do in life, so I blamed him for that. I had a lot of failures in life, so I blamed him for that. I had a lot of self-confidence issues. I blamed him for that. I blamed him for everything in life. But rather than getting caught up in the victim mindset of it, I used that blame and turned it to anger. And I took that anger and turned it into fuel. And that is what helped me for almost 18 years of my professional career fighting. And it's what fueled my wins. It was what fueled my victories, my training sessions. The moment when I first set foot into that school in Tiger Schulmann's on 19th Street, all of that fuel that I had is what drove me to show up there every single day because I loved it. And I loved what it was doing for me because I was exercising those demons that I had inside for all these years. But I had also said a lot of things that I wish I could take back.
Right.
Because I didn't know what I had said to them that it would be the last thing I'd ever say to them. And it was it's strange because the truth is there's no anger, there's love. But you hate because you love. You know, I wanted to tell him how much he actually did mean to me and how much I wished I had his support and his love and that he was more present in my life because my life would be different. I wouldn't have had to have gone through the things that I'm still struggling with and emotionally healing from had he been there. I just wish I'd say it in a better way. I just said things to him out of anger, and it was to the effect of hoping that he would die one day and that he takes regret with him to the grave and he's going to, die with a lot of that in his heart, and that I would hope for it, that it's not pleasant for him. And I said some things just very, very much out of anger. And then, I got the call about him passing away a few days before my last fight. I was supposed to fight in Vegas. This is my fight with Bilal. And there was enough time from then until the actual fight for me to just get my shit together and sort out whatever I needed to. But my management had called and they were like, let's pull out of this fight. I'd understand. I think you need to take time for yourself and be with your family. And then I'd found out that my family, at least from his side, they held his funeral behind my back. I guess perhaps out of spite or out of knowing what I had said to them. They knew about that, so they figured why invite me. But really, it was because I was just hurt. I didn't hate the guy. The guy's my father. I remember. So I remember I remember the night before the fight. I was at the hotel, and I usually have a ritual. I pray, I meditate, I do. A lot of it at that point is just mental preparation, getting your mind up and ready for what you're gonna do the next day. It was different this time, obviously. When I started praying, I started having a panic attack. I've never had one before. I've never experienced one. I just felt, at first I thought I ate something bad because I started to get hot. I was like sweaty and I felt it in my, like right in my belly, right in my stomach. And I was feeling nauseous, hot. I was sweating for no reason. And then I ran over to the toilet and I took a knee in front of the toilet. I was literally on my knees in front of this toilet, like thinking I got to, get some shit out. And, nothing. I was just hyperventilating at that point. So I started undressing and I was hyperventilating in front of a toilet. And I wanted to try to carry on my prayer because it was interrupted. So I tried to pray in front of this toilet. And then somehow the prayer changed midway. And I was telling myself, God, I pray that you shrink me so that I could fit in this fucking toilet and flush myself down because that's where I belong. And then that was the start of self-deprecating hatred that followed for years after that. I wanted to hurt myself. And it wasn't just that he passed away. It wasn't any of that because people die. That's part of life, and I understand that. It was just more of how I feel like all my life, what I wanted was forgiveness, and what I wanted was to have him in my life or to hear something from his side to at least understand that what he did, he could have done better. Anything. I just waited my whole life for a moment that I thought was going to come where finally he would be in my life. And when he finally showed up and that opportunity was there, I fucked it up. And so, I went out the next day to go fight. I walked into that cage and I just wanted it to be over. I didn't even remember much of the fight other than I was just walking forward, just, taking hits. it was strange because I was taking hits and I feel like I wasn't feeling at the same time. It was strange. It was the first time I ever felt like that in a fight. Just walking forward, tense, tight. Um, wasn't my best performance. I just wanted it to be over because I wanted right after that fight go find somewhere to fucking crawl and die somewhere. And I had a moment where my lowest point for me was almost taking my own life. I went out to Pennsylvania, rented out a cabin there. Long story short, I took my firearm with me, and I remember sitting there bedside, and I had my gun next to the Bible. They always have a Bible there at the nightstand in hotels. Staring at it, and then not knowing still what I was thinking, but I just remember staring at it, and I just find myself with part of the cold muzzle to the side of my temple. It's racked, and I have my trigger finger tense. I remember fuck.
You're good, man. Take your time.
I'm sorry.
No, don't even.
I remember I wanted to feel control. And I never felt more control in my life than having felt my finger. Having felt my finger on that trigger. I don't know if you guys, if you shoot or know anything about it.
Yeah.
When you ride the wall till you, riding the wall on the trigger, if you know what that means. I went as far as riding the wall on that trigger. And the only thing that was going through my head at that point was my mom. By that point, I was already doing a lot of drinking, and I was just pretty much distant. And my mom just kept calling. At that point, she knew I was like doing a lot of things to myself and drinking a lot and just fucking like drinking like crazy. Like I've never drank like that my entire life. And she would leave voicemails, and there was a voicemail she left like crying one time, like crying. I remember, to me, the last time I remember her crying like that was when I had told her what happened to me when I was sexually abused as a kid. And I couldn't do that to her. My other sister, I got two younger sisters, and one of them she's battling cancer. I was thinking of her. My other one was battling, some issues of her own as well, substance, and similar to my situation as well. And I couldn't do that to her either. And I had a moment where I just said, you know what, I don't even deserve to die. I deserve to live, so I could punish myself slow, and so I did. I never thought about taking my life again. I'm not suicidal or anything. I was just more of, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life pretty much just like this, And then the irony of it is that I'd end up like my father. Yeah, I'm just gonna spare all the details, but there was a funny circling of this whole fucking story because one night I show up in my old apartment complex. I was already drunk. You know, it was a given for me almost every night. And then when I show up in my apartment complex, I see all these police squad vehicles. And then one of them approaches me and asks me, like, hey, you're Lyman Good, right? And I go, yeah. And then it was like, you know, if you don't mind, step out the vehicle. I kind of knew where this was going, but I didn't know what it was about. You know, I thought, I don't know. I had a feeling. So I get out, and then next thing you know, I'm surrounded by, I think it was like 5 or 6 of them. And they go, you know, we're not here to arrest you. We're worried about your health. And I fucking knew 100% where this was going. And then he said, we're just here to watch you until, you know, the ambulance comes. And I knew that they were just going to take me to the psych ward again. And so they drove me back to the, not back to, this is in Jersey, different hospital. So I get locked up again. Here I am, you know, 30-something years old in a fucking psychiatric unit all over again. And it felt like a circling in this whole story because now I'm in this hospital almost for the same reason I was the first time, and it's about misinterpretation and being misjudged. And you know, I know who made the call. I was very angry at that person for it, but it wasn't his call to make. What he could have done was call me and say, hey, you need help, brother. Let me know what you need from me. I'm coming over. Talk to me. Like anything other than calling the fucking cops and then just throwing your hands up and saying, all right, that's their problem. So I think he could have handled that better. He knows who he is, and I confronted him about this already. And so I spent the night in the hospital, and it's like a version of the same time before all over again, where I feel like I have to have this transformative, you know, moment. I got to change all this, and I can't live out the rest of my life if I keep doing what I'm doing now. I'm not gonna make it far. Not at the way I was drinking. Not at the rate I was doing a lot of reckless behavior that could have taken mine or other people's lives. But I said I have to start to make a change. The accountability factor kicked in, you know, and it wasn't just an overnight fucking like, you know, fairy tale movie where I suddenly become better, you know, in a matter of months. It took years. It took some time after that. Basically within the span of maybe 3 years, I want to say, after, of which, you know, I had someone who was there helping me throughout, you know, this whole process. I'm accustomed to having people and allowing the presence of people to be around me when I'm at my best. And I feel that I am in control, and I, you know, am showing a better version of myself. So for me, I had Micka alongside this whole, you know, roller coaster. And, you know, and I said it to her as well. And I said, you know, I'm going to get you hurt, you know, and I'm going to hurt you. By then I had hurt many people. I was in a relationship for 10 years with somebody else. Around that time, after my father passed, you know, that ended as well. So I lost, you know, someone that I spent almost a decade of my life with because I couldn't anymore. I couldn't be that person. I couldn't be who they wanted me to be to make them happy because I didn't love myself. And I didn't want anybody around me. So I was ruining relationships. I was keeping people as far away from me as possible. And I was letting everyone know that I'm fucking poison and they need to stay away from me. I was telling Micka this, and it was funny enough. One night I got in the truck and she opens the door and she knew the state I was in. And I said, I'm going to get you killed. You know, like what are you doing? She basically sits in and straps herself up, and she's like, you know, well, if you go, I go. I was like, fuck,
Yeah.
like, she's crazy.
Huh.
But I told her, I warned her, and she gave me space. And that was one of the most precious things that she could have given to me, because she allowed me the space that I needed for me to heal, to not be the Superman that I've been all along for many years. In the midst of all this, I was still going to the school on the days that I was sensible enough and didn't reek of fucking alcohol. And I would just straight face go upstairs, literally like park my truck right outside the school, like, and I'm crying, and I just clean myself up, put a smile on my face, walk in, and just teach a class, like, without fail, no problem at all, and in a way that helped, because when I became about the mission, and the mission had nothing to do with me, and it became about others, I do better. But then when I focused on myself, I realized that I didn't want better for myself, because I didn't feel I deserved better. I was in the midst of unloving myself, hating myself, and I wanted to punish myself. That's why I spent many years, quiet, trying to figure it out on my own. And then after my father had passed away, it was like, that whole system, that survival method that I created for myself was hanging by a thread. That thread snapped finally. Everything that I needed to heal from since I was 9 years old, I was forced to deal with it in the past 4 years. I dealt with it however I did. It's not to say that was the best of ways or safest of ways or smartest of ways, but it was a way that I needed to heal, and I needed to feel every ounce of pain that I was ignoring, because I was trying to be the Superman the whole time for everyone. But meanwhile, I was going to bed with demons. And so little by little over time, I started to change, and, it was not easy. To this day, it still isn't. Healing's not linear, and it's one of those things that you have good days and bad days, but you understand that you're on a new mission in life now, and it's about self-empowerment. It's about self-enlightenment as well, but most of all, and importantly, most of all, is self-accountability, and to finally square off with the man in the mirror. And along the way, as I started to heal and get better, is where amidst all this chaos was where the birth of Good Theory happened. I have Micka to thank for that. And every time I say this, the first thing she says is that, no, I'm not the person to thank. You did it because you wanted to, not because I wanted you to. And that's why I was just here, just to be by your side, not to intervene, not to push, not to do anything other than just watch and just let you do what you have to do. But she said we could help people. And I didn't understand. And she said, you have to first learn to love yourself before you can love other people. And I still didn't understand that. And fast forward through all this, I was invited to be on the Stoke the Flames podcast with Jesse. And I was like, fuck, I don't want to do this. Now that you know the whole story, I don't want to, let people know what I've been doing the past, few years to myself. What am I going to tell? I got students who follow me. I got a lot of parents, of kids that I teach and stuff. Like, what am I going to talk about? And I was like, you know what? Like, let's do it anyway. Somebody told me just fucking do it. Just like shut the fuck up. Just go out there and just square off and just, do what you've been doing. It's nothing new. And then we start the show, we start talking. And bro, I can't tell you how automatic everything felt. For every question they were asking in the middle of it, I already had the answer, because I've said the same answer for many years. In 18 years of my professional career, I have it like, it's like a script. And it's like a character that I played. And that something clicked where halfway through it, I was just like, I wanted to abort the character and not be that person anymore. It didn't feel right. I felt sick. I felt sick putting on that mask that I took off, that was forced off. And the direction of the episode kind of changed, took a different turn, started crying. I was like, what the fuck am I doing crying on, on TV shows? And I was embarrassed. I remember after the show, I was thinking like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Yeah.
And I was very scared to go through my messages and see what people's reactions were going to be. So I was flinching at every message I got, and every time I opened a message, it was always something to the effect of, Sensei, I didn't know you were going through that. Sensei, I can't tell you how much I needed to hear that. These are from students. Sensei, I'm happy that you spoke about that because X, Y, and Z. And then they would tell me things that I never even knew about this person, one of which had to do with, past abuse that she went through. And, I promised her I'd always keep that between her and I. And I felt confused at first because I'm like, man, I thought people would look at me and be like, all right, this isn't the Lyman that I've seen in front of TV, or I've seen teach in front of a class all these years. But then sure enough, it turned out I was getting more and more messages. I was supportive, and just it kind of shifted my perspective on the true idea of what it means to be strong.
Yeah.
And I think people needed to see that side of me because it resonated more than, me trying to pretend to be the Superman. It also changed the dynamic of the relationship between my younger sister and I, Kirsty, because during that crazy time in my life, I was also I stopped trying, and I was like, you know what? If you want to know the truth, and then I just let her in on all the shit that I was doing to myself then. And that, to be honest, was the first time in probably a long time or ever that we were connecting, and we actually had a deeper relationship together, her and I. Because she said, and I will never forget the message she wrote to me. She said, I never wanted Superman as my brother. I just wanted you, just wanted, the honest version of you. And I was like, man, like these are all clues that, the podcast, that conversation I had with my sister, these are all insights to how people, the more vulnerable and honest and open we can become, the more power and impact we have on others. And then that's when I was full force with the idea of good theory, because I was not opposed to it, but I was delaying the idea, wanting to do it. I was like, yeah, sure, it'd be a cool idea. And Micka was all over it. She was like, she came up with the name, she came up with ideas. She had a lot of she was just very, very motivated and driven. And she saw something that I didn't see. From my perspective, I'm coming out of darkness. And from her perspective, she's saying I'm coming into the light, and that I have something that could help people. And fast forward past that, here we are. We've opened Good Theory. We're about 6 months in, making an impact, trying to bring more awareness, starting this project and this mission for me to be more open and vulnerable, regardless of how I look, whether it's embarrassing or not, but to be truthful about who I truly am, and not to act like this person, this character, this avatar that I'm not. And so here we are.
I mean, I think authenticity is key in this. Like, you did the show with them. Start crying and wondering how people were going to react to it, and that was you just being human and just being real, and like, and bro, I'm all about being authentic, 100%. And I think the way that you've been able to progress because of that, we never think, we're always too caught up in this, like, oh, I can't let so and so know how I'm feeling. But I bet you that you never in a million years probably would have thought that you would have had your students coming up telling you that, thank you so much for this, thank you so much, or I was going through X, Y, and Z, and just know, like, these are people that seen you day in and day out, and you put on this mask for however long you did it, and then you just went and all of a sudden you just break and you just, this is who I am. And the fact that you got him and they embraced you and loved you and supported you and brought you to this point in your life, because I'm sure it was a scary fucking thing, 100%.
Yeah, and it's so hard. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, oh, like once you do it, you break that veil. It's like, all right, it's over with. There's still this. I'm just conditioned. At the end of the day, I mean, we all are. We're conditioned since the first inception of the idea of what it means to be strong, by whether it's parents, whether it's uh, whoever. Um, we're given this false idea and stigma of what it means really to be mentally healthy, you know, to have connection with your soul and your spirit, to have a good sense of being, but also a good sense of awareness to yourself, to where we're all imperfect and we're that way by design. And to live this life and this notion of us having to be perfect is complete bullshit. And it's not real whatsoever. But yet it's pushed, you know, in front of us day in and day out. You scroll through social media, you look at TV, you hear it from other people. It's just so it's so romanticized. The idea of what is really like true strength.
Right.
You know, true strength
Yeah.
is what, to act a certain way until that person blew his fucking brains out, and then now you're at their funeral. That don't look strong to me. It
Right.
looks like somebody who kept playing this avatar and this character because he was told to, because that's the way society has to, you know, deems you as being fit to, you know, live in society. You know,
Right.
I think that needs to change. And I think conversations like this, your mission, like what you're doing and helping and talking to people and having more of these conversations is the start of it. It's not going to be the answer, because you know, people are still going through what they're going through. At the end of the day, it's a matter of, all right, what do I do now? Now that I'm aware of
Yeah.
it, what do I do? How do I
Yeah.
fix this?
It's equipping people with knowledge and again, just letting them know that they're not alone. You know, many people sit out there and I started this because I know when I was going through my shit in life, I would have loved to have a platform like this that I could have just, wow, there's people out there that are just like me. There's people out there, and so again, this isn't the answer, but one episode at a time, we'll start letting people know they're not alone, that they are here, that they have people, and then just start equipping, and not even them, but their families and everything as well, to know, okay, how can I deal with my loved one that's going through this? How
100%.
this isn't just for the person that's directly affected, but it's for the friends and family as well.
Yeah,
And I think that's the most important thing at the end of the day.
I agree. 100%. Brother man, I was going to ask, do I have a moment to run to the bathroom real quick?
Yeah, you're
Quick.
good, brother.
I'll be right
You're good.
back.
A few moments later.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. We're gonna shift gears on a couple things, and yeah. But like I said, man, the conversation has just been so. I don't rush things. I just let it flow the way it flows. Like I said, if it takes 45 minutes or it takes 2 hours, I just, all I care about is being authentic and giving you guys that platform and that safe space to be able to just let it go and just be
Appreciate
fully
that.
transparent.
Thank you.
So swapping gears, UFC is a big thing. It's a huge thing, obviously, to be a part of. And so how did that come apart, or how did that come about?
Um, well, it was short notice fight that had came about. It was so long before that. I mean, there was just a lot of, you know, fighting and a lot of you know, this desire to have to compete in the UFC. It's considered the highest echelon in the, you know, sport of combat, and obviously that was my goal, the dream for me. You know, the end goal of all this is to get into the UFC. So at that point, I was already fighting locally, and I was fortunate enough to have a great team who, you know, trained me very well. And, you know, I was winning all my fights, and then went on to go into Bellator to win the the tournament of, the inaugural welterweight championship. The preparation for that was also funny because my coach had, said to me, why don't we prepare by you sleeping in the cage for 3 months? And I was like, I kind of knew, why he wanted it, but I wasn't sure if he was serious about it. It was like, no, like if you want to win this, you got to really devote yourself. Why don't, you just pack all your stuff, sleep at the gym, but you sleep in the cage? I was like, all right, let's do it. And for 3 months, I slept, sure enough, inside of a cage at our headquarters facility in New Jersey.
Mm.
And to me, that was my preparation. And I didn't think twice about it, because anything I do, if you know me really well, if you're ever close, friends with me, you know that I'm just very obsessive by nature. If I get my mind wrapped around something that I want, I become very obsessive. Therefore, I'm willing to do anything that will get me the result. And downright to always having the picture of the opponent always on my phone the moment I sign, and I know that's the person I'm going to fight. I just devote myself. I'm all in. So after that, I won the Bellator Welterweight Championship, and I thought the next move would be to go into the UFC, it wasn't working out quite yet. So I was like, all right, so let's get back into a circuit where I could just knock some people out, uh, have a good few performances, and that's my way in. And still, it was just taking a while, and I was just like, man, all this work that I'm putting in isn't getting me there. There was even one time where I had fought someone that I know I had beaten, who he ended up in the UFC, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, there's a lot of politics involved in this. I'm not understanding, what's going on. I think, what it was just that, things happened at the right time. I just stayed prepared, and I was like, you know what? It's not going to stop me from my mission. Let me just keep training. And so at that time, I was training regardless every day. Like if I had a fight, I was always pretty much ready. In the world of MMA, you have to be ready at all times. We don't have seasons. There's no on and off seasons. There's just where preparation and opportunity meet. And that's how it came about for me. I was called for a short fight notice. Someone had gotten hurt, and they reached out to me for the opportunity. I so happened to be training, and I was fight shape ready. So I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. Let's do this. And I was flown out to California, fought in San Diego in UFC, and then, knocked the guy out my first fight. And yeah, got the contract, and then been fighting for them since. But the one thing I would say is that it wasn't an easy route. It wasn't, I got in after a few fights. No, it's all the things that people don't see,
Mm.
when they think of a fighter in the UFC, or they see people who compete there now. They're like, oh, he must have gotten there pretty quickly after a few fights. There's a lot of work that a lot of fighters have to go through, and a lot of committing themselves and resigning to sacrifice, devotion, training, um, everything. It's like your life has to be about this. If this is something that you want, you can't just say that you want it. You have to be
Mm.
all about it. Your life has to be just enveloped in the idea of, fighting. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, you got to really want it bad,
Is have you met Dana White? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Mhm.
follow. I follow a lot of part of the UFC. I follow the Nelk Boys on YouTube. And
Mhm.
and I'm big fans of theirs and whatnot. And so they're always always in Vegas, always with Dana. They're doing stuff with Sugar Sean and just all that stuff. So it's I'd love to go to a UFC fight one day. It's just making it one day it'll happen. I want to go to Vegas and go to a fight. I think it'd be
Oh, it's
really cool.
exciting, bro. Like you ever been to one? Any
Never
fight?
been to
Like
one.
it's
I want to
exciting.
so bad. I've never been to one.
It's very different from watching it on TV. You go on television, and as exciting as it is, because you get the angles, and it's very specific viewpoint with the
Yeah.
cameras, and you get the best view from there. When you're there in person, it's just electrifying. You feel the energy of the crowd,
Hmm.
everything that happens, every exchange in the cage when you see it. You hear it. It's wild. There's just this energy that's there. It's fun.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you
Yeah.
for your first time
Oh,
going.
it'll happen. It'll happen definitely. What would you say is your, like I said, because yeah, we talk about the past and we talk about the unfortunate circumstances during life and stuff like that. But I also like to talk about the highs of life and whatnot. And what would you say is your most favorite? What would you say your favorite highlight of being in the UFC? Something that probably the best moments you can recall.
Getting my hand raised at Madison Square Garden.
Okay.
I had, I wasn't always into the practice of meditation and visualization, manifestation, and I had gotten into it at the time and was. I remember that before the fight, a week even before, I was meditating and sitting there in practice and telling myself, I was just visualizing the win. I remember it was one of the first times I've had experiences where I knew I was going to win before. You just know. It's hard to explain. A lot of other fighters, if you ask them, they'll tell you the same thing, that they just have this sense of knowing even before the fight happens, that they see it. They see their hands getting raised. I had not only that feeling, but I had this moment where I was meditating and I was even like teary eyed, like I was crying out of joy because I had already won, and I had this absolute sense of knowing. There was no denying it. I felt in every fiber in my entire fucking body that I was going to win this fight. And having that forethought, and then after the fact, when I won the fight, um, knocked him out in the first round, got my hand raised, that there was just this moment that was I don't even know how to explain it, but it was so profound that on my drive back home, I remember just having the same exact, tears of joy that I had the week before the fight, knowing that I was going to win already, and I'll never forget that. It's one of the most spectacular, most fulfilling feelings you'll ever have, is to have your hands getting raised in a victory inside of that cage. And it's not just because it's a win and it's, what it's fancied over, on TV, and because it just looks good and it's glory. It's also because there's so much at stake for a lot of us when we go in there, and when we fight. There's this heaviness, this weight that just comes off your shoulders when you get your hands lifted, that it just feels like the weight of the world is off your shoulders now. It's hard to explain, but it's one of
Yeah.
the most amazing feelings that there is. It's a sense of, you validate yourself. There's nothing, what's better than having someone tell you that they're proud of you is for you to be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
This feeling of everything that you sacrificed came back tenfold,
Yeah.
and it's
Like
just,
everything paid off.
oh man, it's just when everything lines up beautifully like that, is no better feeling in this world.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I mean, because at the end of the day, like you said, it's just all your hard work and all your training, and I'm sure all the blood, sweat, and tears, literally,
Mm,
all that, and it's just like, all right, cool. Like it gives you, you feel good about yourself.
yeah,
Like it's again, like you
I
said, yeah,
feel
it's one thing to
alive.
have somebody tell you that they're proud of you, but for you to physically feel that yourself, like because you anybody, you yourself are your biggest critic. So it doesn't matter
100%.
how many people tell you, "Oh, you did great. I'm proud of you." This and that. If you don't feel it internally, like you know, so to be able to feel that and actually feel it and actually mean it, like
Yeah,
fuck, that's got to be surreal.
yeah. There's no denying that feeling for sure, because I mean, you just validated yourself.
Right, right.
You feel good about it. I mean, there's no better feeling in this world than that.
What's the future looking like? Both for UFC and Good Theory. I seen that you had a post that you were starting to make a comeback with UFC and whatnot.
Yes. So I undergone spine surgery about 6 months ago. So I've been in recovery from that. I needed, now that you know the whole spectrum of the fucking chaotic story,
Mm,
I've just been in a recourse of self healing and on a path of rejuvenation in life and a lot of sorting out that I needed in the past 4 years. But now that that's, come to a head, I'm ready to make a comeback. I told myself and I promised that I wouldn't go back into that cage until I felt my heart back in it again.
Mhm.
And I'm ready. This is the year that I make the comeback. I feel good. I'm recovering from spine surgery. I've been ignoring the pain for a few years now. I had a lot of, problems with my back. I just ignored it. I've been doing okay with it, but I figured, if I'm going through this path of healing, why not just take care of everything? This way, when I go back out there, I'm completely fresh. I'm someone new again.
Yeah.
So I'm looking to
When
make
you
that return
when
this year.
I was gonna say, when you anticipate what later on this year?
Yeah, at some point this year. I don't know when yet. I'm still kind of,
Yeah.
playing it by ear when it comes to my back
Yeah,
and getting
you don't
back
want
into
to push
training
it.
too.
Yeah.
But definitely this year. And when it comes to good theory, is just growing it, man. Just increasing my impact, my ability to reach further out to people. Micka and I are on this path of just, grind, work every day, and hoping that it'll pay off one day in the form of being able to help in the smallest of ways possible. We're not trying to be,
Yeah.
Mother Teresa over here or swearing to be that. We're just trying to, in the slightest of ways, trying to make this world or anyone's world a bit better by
Yeah.
bringing awareness, by motivating, by inspiring, by passing the message, talking more about it. I feel that I'm in a unique position because if I could talk on behalf of that and about vulnerability and about openness, coming from somebody who is respected and who's praised for knocking somebody out, I'm basically in one of the most masculine fields that there are. And if I could speak about it on behalf of that, then there's no denying the importance of why we need to heal, the importance of people needing to have a path of self discovery, getting through the shit that they've been ignoring their entire lives and brushed under the rug for the entire lives. I also truly believe that people later in life, when they say that they experience what's called a midlife crisis, to me, really, it's just someone who denied themselves the ability to had dealt with their past trauma that eventually surfaces and then it comes out in a moment that they weren't expecting. That to me is what a midlife crisis truly
Mm.
is when you failed to ignore the signs of all the things that needed healing and that the broken parts of you
Mm-hmm.
that needed the light that you had to bring out and you had to deal with your shit that you never do until one day you have to.
Yeah.
So our mission basically with Good Theories is growing it, see where it goes. We don't know what it is yet. We
Mm.
do know it's mental health awareness, but it's growing in ways that we're just open to the idea of wherever it goes, we're going with it, you know. So
Yeah,
we're excited about it.
I tell you, I know, our team here, we love exactly, we love what you guys are doing. And
Thank you.
any way that we can help, any way that we can help promote, anything we can, we will. So, um, we support the mission and we try to help anybody out that has the same mission and the same vision and just keep grinding, man. I've been doing this a few years and it's not, hasn't taken off as quick as I would like it to, but then I realized at the end of the day, it's not about numbers. It's about, quality over quantity.
Exactly.
Like you said, if only one person listens to this episode and gets something out of it, that's one
Yeah.
life saved.
That's what I said. It's not
But
about the mission, it's about the message.
exactly. So it's like, we support that, man. So anything we can do to help, with that, we're here anytime. So
Thank you, brother.
for the
Same
ones
to
that don't
you.
know,
Same to you
yeah,
as well. If
yeah,
there's any
we'll
way
keep
we
in
could
contact for
promote,
sure.
yeah, for sure. I'd love to keep a relationship with you. Love to
Yeah,
hear more about your story as well. We talked a lot
yeah,
about me, but all
no,
about
definitely,
storytelling and getting to know people behind the scenes. And
yeah,
there's a reason why you're doing what you're doing as well. And
right,
it's not because of sunshines and rainbows, if you know what I mean.
yeah, absolutely. For the ones that don't know, where can they follow you guys? Where can they support you guys at?
Good dot theory at Instagram. My personal one is at Lyman Good MMA. So right now we're on just on Instagram for the Good Theory account. You can also go to our website. It's goodtheorywellness.com. And we're also in the process of soon launching an online fitness app. I truly believe in my heart, knowing what I do for a living and how much fitness has helped me a great deal with healing, that fitness is a big component, and being in shape and taking care of your body is a huge component of healing as well. So we wanted to do something to be able to provide people a platform to do online fitness training as well. Kind of gives people a close edge to what I do when I prepare for fights as well. Micka's on board. She's also putting out like boot camp style classes for the women and for the females who have specific preferences in their way of training. So in any case, that's coming out soon. It's also, the website for that is goodtheorycoaching.com. And just be on the lookout for that, because we're going to launch this app pretty much by the end of February. It's coming soon.
Okay. We'll put all the links in the description and whatnot, and invite people over there to follow you guys and to support you and show the love and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
They're doing some good stuff over there, everybody that's listening and watching. So definitely go show them some love. Go support them.
Appreciate that. Appreciate the love. And same to you again. If you ever need anything, reach out. Behind the scenes, this isn't just for show. This is also, I like to have long, ongoing relationships with people who showed interest and support to us. So let us know how we can help.
Absolutely. All right. You got anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, sir. I think I've said a mouthful.
Nah, you're good, man. I appreciate it. An hour and 45 minutes went by like nothing. So thank you again for coming on. Thank you for just sharing a little bit of your story. Bro, it's awesome. This is why I love doing this. I just to be able to just get to hear different things about other people. And then it also opens up thoughts about myself and whatnot. So again, it all intertwines at the end of the day. So thank you again for taking that time.
100%. I truly believe that. I know that, when I listen to other people and they talk, even though it may be about them as they're speaking, I gain perspective. Perspective is everything in life. So I agree on that.
Absolutely. So, all right. So that's going to wrap up another episode. Hopefully today's conversation left you guys feeling a little inspired and uplifted. Go follow Lyman Good. Go follow Good Theory. Go follow the Blaklist podcast, and make sure to share this with your friends and family. And I like to end this every single time with this note that no matter what life throws your way, there's always a reason to hold on to hope. And until next time, we are signing off.